Hello, hello, hello. My name's Kyle Van Voorst with Voorst.com, and in this video, I want to share with you some advice I have if you're building a sales team for the very first time. Because often I find a lot of folks close their eyes, cross their fingers, and hope things work out. I don't want that to happen to you. Let's dive right in. We've worked with over 40 different B2B software and service companies and helped them build their sales teams. Either they have a small sales team that isn't functioning very well, or they have no sales team at all. So this is an area that I'm intimately familiar with. And I want to share with you how we think a little bit differently about the early stages of building a sales team. And if you're in the process of building a sales team, I'm going to commit to you that this is probably going to be one of the more valuable videos you've watched on the topic. I really want to get you to start thinking a little bit differently when it comes to the approach that it's going to take to build this repeatable sales process, because that's ultimately what we're looking for. Now, what most folks do is what I call hire and hope. They hire a sales rep, maybe with a bit of experience, and they hope that it works out. Usually it doesn't, or it just goes okay or very mediocre. Sometimes it works very, very well. And then what happens is the founder typically tries to figure out what works really well, do more of that, and then bring on somebody else who can replicate what's working. The problem is it takes a really long time, and often there are hiring mistakes mixed in there that cause it to be delayed longer. I don't know what the actual average is, but a lot of times with the people that we speak to, they have been working on trying to build a repeatable sales process for a year or more. So I don't want that to happen to you. So let me share with you how we think about it, because we actually flip things on its head a bit. So the first part of building a sales team is understanding what you want that sales team to accomplish, the destination, so to speak. Where are we going? And that's your revenue target. You really want to think about what revenue target you are looking for your sales team to hit. What would success look like? By the way, I know sometimes this number is a little bit difficult. If you want a shorthand rule of thumb, you can 3x the all-in pay of the sales rep that you're hiring and make that the quota. That's not always the right answer, but it's usually the good, quick, and dirty way to start getting some numbers on the paper. Once you have that revenue target, now you want to work backwards to figure out what your team has to do, so the actual activities and conversion rates, and also how many of them that you need. So let me show you an example of this. All right, so look at here. What I have here is actually the step-by-step process to go from a company never hearing of you to actually purchasing your product or service. It starts with the number of prospecting activities. There's this engagement percentage. What that is people answering their phone or people responding to emails. That's the number of prospects that you've actually engaged with. Of those people, these are folks that you've talked to or you've gotten a response from, there's a booking percentage of what percentage of them actually book a meeting. And that's going to be the number of discovery calls that are actually booked. And it might be demo calls for you, but in this example, it's discovery calls. Once we have a number of discovery calls, a certain percentage of them are going to show up. Depending on your industry, that could range from 60% all the way up to 80, 90%. The next step here is actually part of the sales process, right? So this is stage one of the sales process, which in this example is qualification. Well, there's going to be a conversion rate from stage one to stage two, and that's being outlined right here. That's what we're calling evaluation. And then there's going to be a conversion rate from stage two to stage three, which in this example is contract, and then a percent of contract will win and a percent of contract will be close lost. Of course, there's drop off at each stage in the sales process to close lost, but that's not being illustrated here. So I just walked you through the outline. What you want to do is you actually want to take that revenue target we talked about earlier and work all the way backwards to get to how many activities it's going to take with estimates of each conversion rate across the entire funnel like I showed you. And then we're going to figure out exactly what those metrics have to be in order to hit our revenue target, and then ultimately figure out how many people we need to make all of that a reality. So let's jump into an example here. So in this example here, the revenue target is 2 million and their average deal size is 30,000. And for the calculation, I've just rounded everything up to keep it really simple. So you can see here, close one. Close one, we need 67 deals in order to hit that $2 million target. Well, what percentage of deals in stage three are going to be close one? Well, typically that's pretty high because this is the contract stage. So we're putting it at 70%. That makes 96 deals needed in the contract stage in order for us to hit that target. Now we can look at the percentage of deals that go from stage two to stage three. We're estimating 65. It's typically a little bit lower than the contract stage. That means we need 148 deals that make it to stage two. We go back again and we look at stage one to stage two conversion. We're going to estimate around 60% of the stage one opportunities that we speak to will actually move into the next stage, which is evaluation. That means we need 247 stage one opportunities in order to hit our revenue target for the year. Well, what's it going to take to generate that many opportunities? Well, there's a show rate that we need to think about. So 75% is the show rate, which means we need 330 discovery calls actually booked on the calendar. And let's say it's about 5% of conversations or engagements, whether it be a reply to an email or somebody actually picking up their phone. Let's say 5% of them actually turn into a meeting. That means we need to engage with 6,600 prospects. Well, in order to do that, we're going to be making a lot of calls, sending a lot of emails, and let's say about 10% of our activities lead to a prospect engagement. That means we have to do 66,000 activities over the course of a year to hit that $2 million revenue target. So now you have those numbers broken out, and you're going to want to think about it for you. So if you're the founder, you're doing the sales yourself, take a look at your own numbers. I would drop them a little bit just as you get somebody new in, but you want to come up with an expectation of how many activities it's going to take and what are the conversion rates across the entire funnel in order to achieve the revenue target that you've set for the team. Try to be a bit more conservative if you can. If you know the numbers very well, then great, this should be pretty easy. But if you don't, you're going to have to make conservative estimates. And of course, part of what we do here totally for free is we'll actually break down your numbers with you and help give you some clarity in this area. So in the description, you'll see you can go to our website and fill out a form, and we're more than happy to do that with you, whether you choose to work with us or not. But the idea here is that you want to really understand the perfect scenario. What does it take to get from where we are to where we want to be? Now, why is this so helpful? Well, because when you actually hire the team, you're able to cross-reference the plan that you've put together, which we just talked about, and the reality of the effectiveness of the team. If there's a big mismatch in some of those metrics, then you know that's where I need to focus to improve. So let me give an example of that. All right, so here's an example with the same scenario, except the company is tracking a lot less information. So maybe they didn't have a plan, and now they're looking at the data to try to figure this out for themselves. Well, you can see we did 66,000 prospecting activities at a 0.3% activity to demo rate. That's 198 demos booked. That's 75% of them show up. So we do 149 stage one demos, and then 20% of those close one. That means they got 30 deals. Well, that's about half of what they needed, or less than half of what they needed in order to hit their revenue target of 2 million. And they didn't collect the data. So what do you do? I mean, let me ask you, honestly, what would you do in this situation? These are the only metrics that you have. Where are you going to focus? Well, you might just focus on this 0.3%. But what part of the process are you actually trying to fix? Is it the emails? Is it the calls? Is it when they're having a conversation? Is it the follow-up? Is their show-up rate poor? Like, there's all of these questions that come up that you're going to want to figure out the answer to. So let me show you what this looks like in a perfect world where you're tracking all of the right things and you have your plan. So you can see this is now the exact same thing that we did earlier, tracking the exact same metrics, but we're not performing where we need to. And you can see in the red here, those are the areas that there actually is a problem. So in this case, their prospect engagement to discovery call booked, the problem was actually their conversion on those engagements. Their connect rate was actually not bad. It's exactly how we modeled it. So we need to focus with the SDR team on improving from 3% up to 5%, which would get us closer to our target, but not all the way there. And the reason why is because this stage 1 to stage 2 conversion has fallen well below what our estimates were. So we also want to figure out, how is this first call going, and what can we do to enable the salespeople to be able to push deals through the sales cycle from stage 1 to stage 2 specifically. All these other metrics are looking great. If we can just improve those two things, this 30 will become 67, just like we needed it to hit our revenue targets. So when you do all of the math, you have a lot of clarity of what you need. Of course, when you get that activity number, the 66,000 in the example that we gave, you're going to want to make sure you have enough people to do that amount of activity. If you don't, you have to change the revenue target. So keep that in mind. And SDRs typically can do a lot more activities than AEs. So you might want to blend how many SDRs versus AEs, or if you should just have AEs or just SDRs. Like, that's a tough question to answer just in a video. It really depends on your situation. So go ahead, do some math around how many activities you're expecting out of each role on your team, and put a team plan together that better matches the activity levels you need them to hit in order to hit your revenue targets. Because once you have that in place, you know what type of people you need to hire and what their metrics need to be in order to hit your revenue targets. You have full clarity going into the building of your team of what it's going to take in order to be successful. And then if you ever encounter a situation where you're not successful, you have all the data you need in order to make the tweaks necessary in order to fix the sales process. Hopefully you found that helpful. If you like this kind of content, let me know in the comments below. Make sure you like and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching.